Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Solent Marine Scene podcast. My name is Nick van der Weyer. I am a director of Portsmouth Harbour Marine, which runs the annual Gosport Marine Festival, and I'm really excited to have an amazing guest to share with you today. So our guest is a British powerboat sailor, adventurer and speaker based in Portsmouth. He's known for pushing long-distance offshore challenges, especially in ribs, so rigid-hulled inflatable boats, and for building teams and the logistics to attempt world record level feats. He has multiple boating world records, including a world rib record Atlantic crossing in 103 hours, and he attempted a world circumnavigation in a rib in 2002, later successfully completing a circumnavigation by yacht in 2008. His wider adventure history includes navigating a rib around Scotland, Ireland, Britain, and across the Bay of Biscay. By 2012, he had recorded 37 world records and 12 British national records. So please welcome Alan Priddy to the podcast. Welcome, Alan. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's nice to hear my history. I tend to forget about an awful lot of it because I'm looking forward to the next ones all the time. But yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you very much for joining me. It's great to meet you and hear these amazing things. For me, I'm a relative newcomer to the area and to maritime and marine pursuits. So one of my passions is about opening the door, lifting the lid, allowing people to learn more about this world and the things that go on. So my first question really is, given that small introduction, what do you think the first story is that you think you would like to say it's in an education setting to kids so that they can understand who Alan Priddy is, who you are?
That's actually, that is the thing I will never forget, which is I was very fortunate as a young boy to meet the late Sir Alec Rose, and I followed him as best as I could in 1960s, whatever it was. And it was his words to me when I was very young, which is, if you believe you can, and you get on and do it. And that, after he sailed around the world in Lively Lady, I just got myself a little rowing boat and I rowed all the way around Portsmouth. And to me, that was an epic journey. And I got into so much trouble with my parents because they didn't know until someone else told them. But that was it. And from that, I encouraged other people to push themselves. Hence, the charity that I ultimately started, Around and Around, is all about giving them the opportunity and the encouragement to find themselves. You can't drum things into people. They've got to find their own path in life. And I'm proud to say that charity is going very, very well, and we have a 100% success rate.
Wonderful. That is great to hear. And we're going to go on and talk about your current projects, your charity, your amazing stuff. But I just wanted to kind of set the scene. We've got plenty of time. So I just really wanted to take us back to those early days because just to include, we're here in Priddy's Heart, very fittingly at the Media Space, which is my new podcasting studio. And one of the things that I do is I help contribute to the Gosport Marine Festival, an annual festival. And anecdotally, we hear a lot of stories here in Gosport about kids in secondary schools. They live so close to the water with all these facilities on the doorstep, and they don't really engage with it. Some of these kids we talk about, they've never even been to the beach or been out on the water. So I really want to kind of cement that in your early experience of that, of what you were just saying. So can you tell us a bit about where did you grow up? Where were you born? What's your background?
I was born in an old World War II Nissan hut in Bedhampton, which is giving my age away slightly. And then when the developments in what is Lee Park were developed, then we moved there for a short while. Most of my early education was in Lee Park, although I still say I'm a Pompey boy. But we had a little river running through the back of our garden, a little brook. And I remember building a canoe. And during the winter months, you could canoe down that little brook. And that would take you back to Bedhampton if you really wanted to. So, from there, I moved to Portsmouth. And I say I'm born and bred here, but it's a PO postcode. But I'm passionate about Portsmouth, the water, and what it can bring to people. And you're right. There's so many opportunities for people they don't know are here that they look at, and I'm not going to say ignore. I'm not going to say dismiss really, but they don't grasp what the water can actually do for them. and being on the water, whether it be a discipline, a regimented way of doing things, or else, it's here. And I tried to support working with the University of Portsmouth. Cold water immersion, swimming. There's so many kids and don't even go into the water because it's not them. Another thing I'm quite passionate about is fishing. There's so many opportunities for the youngsters to go fishing and be part of the water. And we just keep pushing the boundaries back all the time. Sometimes, and I have to say, in the latter parts, it's all this health and safety and bits and pieces. But again, I think being on the water does encourage youngsters to be healthy and to be safe, because it's got to go with life. It's got to go all the way through into their latter life as well for their children and their children's children.
So in your personal experience, you mentioned Sir Alec Rose there. How did you meet him? What was that experience? What was there is there a formative story there for you?
Yeah, I mean, he was the Life Commodore of the Eastern Cruising Association, and I was a cadet there. My father was a member. And he was the man. He was going to take on the world in Lively Lady, and he was just a regular guy. He had a greengrocer's shop in Southsea, and he was taken ill. He wasn't the wellest man, I have to say, but he had determination, and he was ill in bed with flu or something. And his second wife Dorothy knew that he wanted to do something amazing, so she saw this boat for sale in Yarmouth. Lively Lady, and she went over and she bought it and she gave it to him. That was it. And we always say that if she really, really, really loved him and really, really wanted him to do more, she would have bought him a bigger boat, because Lively Lady is small. I have to say, it's a bit like living in a wardrobe at times as well. But I got to know him. I've never been shy, and I remember when he landed back. I think it was on a Wednesday into Portsmouth, and it was 250,000 people saw him back, and he was whisked off to London and to the Buckingham Palace and knighted and that. But the following weekend on the Sunday, he brought Lively Lady back into Eastney and dropped his anchor outside the Eastern Cruising Association. And I had a little 8-foot dinghy, and a little 2-horsepower outboard on the back. And I went out just by myself in that boat, and I saw him back, and there was hordes of boats, and the sea was churned up, and it was really quite bad, and probably my first experience of real difficult sea conditions. But, I didn't hesitate. The Lord Mayor was there, and I pushed my way through the crowds, and I went up to him, and I said, "How did you do that? Fantastic job." I was probably 12, 13, if that, and it cemented a long-term appreciation for what he did, which actually spurred me on, and even into my business career.
What did he say? What did he say when you asked him?
He said, that's what his words were. He said, if you believe you can, just get on and do it. You've got no other choices. You have to keep going. Even when the chips are down, what choices do you get? You can't cry when you're in the middle of the ocean by yourself, or perhaps you can. But, you just carry on, and you just push yourself. And, if you don't succeed at first, push yourself again. And, I've had some failures in my boating life. Business has been a bit difficult sometimes over the last 57 years, but you just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and carry on.
Yeah, can you think of an early, maybe your first proper I'm in over my head moment? Is there any that kind of stick out to you as that's always the nightmare for me?
Yeah, I mean, we always sort of have 4 plans when we plan anything. We have plan A, which is perfect, plan B, which is not quite so perfect, and then we have plan C, which is it's really not going very well, and then we have plan OF, which is self-explanatory if you can understand the abbreviation, and you have to really dig deep at that point. And if it's bad weather, I'm always mindful of the Metissier saying when he was interviewed before setting off around the world, the French sailor, and he was interviewed and he was asked the question, what do you do when the sea's so bad you can't carry on? He said, I go down below and I drink a bottle of scotch. And the interviewer said, well, what good does that do? He said, when I wake up, the storm's over. and that is a truthful fact, because it does happen. And when I sailed Lively Lady around the world, I studied and studied and studied everything that Alec had done. And I read his book time and time again. And he said, when the chips are down, have a sleep. You can't sail Lively Lady in a storm. You just got to go down below, batten down, and when you wake up, it's over. And I don't mean over in terms of life expectancy, but the storm has passed. No storm lasts forever. And I can recall lots of world record attempts we've done, where we've actually purposely set off in a storm, knowing that a storm can't last forever. And, you can pick up on the good pieces, which is, again, a lot of people think I'm mad to take that attitude. You should stay in harbour and wait for the winds to blow. But if you've got a good handle on weather, follow the storm out.
Is it about control? Is it about working out what you can control and what you can't control? And it seems like almost a way of summing up that is, if you can't, just being, just existing, just seeing it through is enough sometimes.
I think it's more about preparation rather than control. There's lots of things you can't control when you're out there. And I pride myself on covering all eventualities, and I openly say that when we're ready to start something, start a challenge, start a world record, ocean crossing, whatever, if I've done my job properly, there's nothing for me to do apart from just crew. And I've usually got someone else on the helm, because it's about the preparation that you do. Storms are storms. Yes, these days you can track storms easy on your mobile phone. This morning I got up and I needed to hang up a little bit of washing out, and come away. And I looked on the app and I could see it was going to rain for 10 minutes, at 8:15. I'm not going to bring the washing in then at that point, am I? There's no point. Mm-hmm. It's having the ability to have the courage inside yourself to say, I've got this right. It's not quite right at the moment. Let's deal with it in any way that we can. And it's got to be the safest way. It's got to be the safest way.
Yeah, I mean, in researching this, I came across a quote of yours that you said, you never know what's going to happen next, so you have to have 100% concentration. Mm. How does that relate to what you were just saying about kind of preparation?
The concentration is actually drawing on your own reserves that you've put in the back of your mind for the eventuality and the situation you're in. So you can draw on your plan. I can honestly say there has been one occasion I've had to use plan OF, but we'll come to that shortly. It is the planning, and some people say I'm overboard on the planning. You can never, ever plan enough, ever plan enough. You've got to have all your plans in place and hope you don't have to use most of them.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you said you'd come on to tell us about a moment where you had to use that last ditch oh dear plan.
Yes, it was an oh dear plan actually. We'd gone around the world in the Spirit of Cardiff. We missed the world record. We've got lots of other world records on that one, but we missed that one with my brother-in-law Steve Lloyd suffering a massive heart attack in the middle of the Atlantic. That wasn't the situation. We went back. We got him into emergency care, and then we decided to leave the boat in Newfoundland, and we brought it back across the Atlantic the following year. And then I made friends with a really good guy, Egbert Waters in Newfoundland, who's a great charity worker, and I actually donated the boat to him and his organisation. And he flew over from Newfoundland, and we had a week tour in the UK and Northern Ireland and bits and pieces. And then we were delivering it, just a regular boat trip for the boys and girls. And we were our first fuel stop was planned to be Iceland from Belfast. So the boat had
set the scene for us. Which trip was this?
It was just a delivery trip. It was in the round the world rib, the 10-metre rib. It's gone around the world. We put that boat through hell on many occasions across the Atlantic. We still hold the current world record for New York to UK in that boat, so it was all found. And we were prepared for everything but what happened, which was we were 320 miles offshore. I wouldn't say difficult conditions, but not overly pleasant. And I'd been off watch actually for a long time, and I tend to go to sleep for the first part of a journey to get my strength back up. I come on watch, dusk time, 7ish, and boat was on autopilot. We were just minding our own business, and all of a sudden the boat angle changed, and what I thought was a wave broke over the bow, didn't, and we went down, and it went from clear to blue to dark blue to black, and I knew at that point we had gone down a long way, and then the front of the boat imploded and came through the cabin and out the back door. So I knew that we'd gone into a big sea hole. People say rogue waves are up. Well, actually, the up ones you can see, the ones that collapse on one another just create a huge, great hole that you go down, and it's tough. It is tough. And when we did service and we looked at the situation, we knew that we were in serious trouble. The boat was broken. So I threw a handheld satellite telephone, an Iridium satellite telephone, which I had already pre-programmed for emergencies, to Egbert. He made the emergency call. I shouted out the lat and long. It ripped all the instruments off the dashboard. The boat was trashed, completely and utterly trashed. He put the call in. That went to back to Newfoundland, where Iridium had their base station. Went to Halifax, went to Cornwall, to Stornoway, and then back to me. So we had a handle on the situation. And when I spoke to Stornoway, I said, "It's not dire. We are alive." And I didn't want them to send the helicopter because it was gone past their flight range. And they said, "No, we're going to send it." I had one crew member that wasn't happy. In fact, I had to tape his hands together, stop him moving, simply because he had lost the plot. I had an ex-military guy with me who was brilliant. He just, whatever you said, do. And, we were tying the wreckage of the boat together at the time. And I was in the water. I dived on the bow of the boat to get the survival suits out. They put their survival suits on. I didn't put my survival suit on because I knew that I was going to be the one in the water, and you can't do much in a survival suit. So I was diving and getting bits and pieces out. And when I got the last piece out, just pure fluke, and I didn't have a camera, and probably no one would ever have a camera, this huge great whale popped up beside me, looked at me as if to say, "You daft idiot, what are you doing here?" I scrambled out of the water, and it was a long wait, shall we say. But eventually we had perfect communication by satellite to telephone.
So literally you're surrounded by the wreckage of the boat.
Yeah, had to tie it all together for a life raft, yeah.
My goodness.
We knew it was... We knew at that point it wasn't life-threatening. No, let me rephrase that, because it's too blasé. We knew at that point we weren't likely to die. We knew it was a life-threatening situation because the water temperature was cold. We didn't know if there's any ships in the area, and I didn't want the helicopter to leave Stornoway to come and get us because the Sikorsky didn't have that flight range. I'm fully aware of that. But in conversations with Stornoway Coast Guard, they said that the helicopter had just come back from a mountain rescue. They were putting it into service. They were going to overhaul the main gearbox because the Sikorsky had to have frequent gearbox overhauls, and they were putting the long-range tanks on. I said, "Are you absolutely sure it can do it?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Okay." The next thing was the big, I think it's a C-130 or something, flew over and dropped some marker buoys. And the other crew went, "Oh, great, we're going to be saved." I said, "The aeroplane can't do anything. All it can do is actually take photographs for the inquest and do its best and drop the marker buoys for whoever's coming next," which is you just have to accept.
Report back that they've seen you.
They've taken photographs of us. They saw the mess it was in. And we just had to wait. And eventually we heard the helicopter after about 4, 5, 6 hours. And it flew straight past us. The mist had come down. The seas were quite big at that time. And the current had got hold of the marker buoy. So it passed us. And I knew it had to be on the end of its flight range. I didn't know how the hell it was going to recover. And so we telephoned Stornoway. They turned it round. It was a low-level arrival, so we couldn't put a flare up. They didn't. Once they saw us, there's no point putting smoke flares up or whatever, and we weren't prepared to fire a flare into the mist in case it hit the helicopter. So you have to think of all these things as your lights flashing past you. And they did do a particularly low-level pickup, very, very low, to the point we had 2 men in a harness. I'm going to say maybe 4 metre pickup, not long. Then Egbert went up, and I was the last person in, and all we had was one grab bag with a few bits and pieces in. And as it elevated, someone in my earphone said, "Tell your guys to hold on." I said, "Why?" They said, "We're nearly out of fuel." I said, "What did you pick us up for then?" And out of the mist, the RFA Fort George came, and they virtually landed the helicopter on the back of the Fort George. Very, very, very low fuel, very, very low fuel. And the captain of the ship had a meltdown. He said he should have dropped it in the sea, because if the helicopter crashed on the Fort George, then there's lots and lots and lots and lots of problems. But and then we were taken to Stornoway, where we were taken care of by the Fisherman's Mission, which we still support to this day.
That is an amazing story, sir. That is an amazing story to hear.
It is, but just to quickly finish it, it's the only time in my life I've had absolutely nothing to my name. Because when they opened our hotel for us, it was the early hours of the morning, and they just took all our clothes off us. We had already had to abandon our shoes. We're barefoot. And I was sat in the room thinking, I've got nothing. Nothing. No money, no cards, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then early in the morning, there's a knock on the door, your clothes are all dried for you. And and then you start to pick life up again. But, you go, well, that was close. That was close.
What jumped out at me there is you were not wanting to be rescued. You were trying to discourage them from sending the helicopter. What was your plan otherwise then?
We didn't have one, but I didn't want anybody else to put their life in danger. We were where we were out of choice. I just generally, at the time, and still believe that it's wrong to put other people's lives in danger if you're not actually going to die yourself. For argument, yes, we would have been cold. Yes, we would have been wet and miserable. But tomorrow is another day. And, the conditions weren't particularly kind. So could we have waited for the Fort George? Yes, we probably could have done. Could we have waited for a fishing boat? Could we have waited 24 hours, 36, 48 hours? Yes, we probably could have done. It wouldn't have been nice. It would have been very miserable. But it would have been wrong to put other people's lives in jeopardy.
I respect to you for that. Yeah. That's amazing. And
it was our choice
for explaining.
Yeah, it's our choice to be adventurous. And the rescue services, it's their choice to do what they want to do. But if I had my say, I wouldn't have asked for the helicopter. Incidentally, on that, and it's still on the Coast Guard website, it was actually classed as a rescue. It wasn't classed as a rescue. It was classed as an exercise where I did everything right, they did everything right, and the Navy did everything right. It was actually classed as an exercise, and it was a 5-star exercise. So it tested them as well, but it's something we could have done without.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I suppose we've had that oh dear moment there. So I'd like to just refocus us on some of the kind of hurrah moments, particularly, that record-breaking crossing the Atlantic in a rib in 103 hours. What kind of can you share from us there? What was the hardest part? What was the best part? Were there specific challenges there?
We need to go back a year on that. We're still in Newfoundland, and I said, Newfoundland gets snowed in for 4 or 5 months of the year, and I said, I'll go back out there, and if it starts, then we'll cross the Atlantic and come back. And I went out in early April and put a battery on it, cleaned the starter motor, and it started. I thought, got to do another transatlantic now. So we put a team together. Egbert was with us, the Newfoundland guy, Dr. Falkeski, my right-hand man, and Clive Tully. And then Bear Grylls, who I'm very, very friendly with, we've got a huge amount of respect for one another, announced he was going to be the first person to cross the Atlantic in a rib. And we had to say, well, that's not quite right, is it? If you go back through history, there's Dr. Bombardier did cross the Atlantic many, many, many moons ago. He drifted across and lived on seawater and fish eyes for about 6 months, but he still crossed it in an inflatable dinghy. And I remember going to his press launch in the old days of Earl's Court Boat Show, and he was announcing what he was going to do. And we said, well, what's different? Bearing in mind, there was already a book written about us crossing the Atlantic in 1997 in a rib, and he had bought a copy of my book. So, and it basically copied it, and he was in Halifax, we were in Newfoundland, and I challenged him to a race across the Atlantic, and he declined on the grounds that someone's got to come first and someone's got to come second, and it didn't quite suit him. So we set off before him, just to make sure that all the stops he was there, our presence was known before he got there, shall we say. And we set off on the final leg, which would have been from Greenland, through the ice to Scotland, which was where the timing mark was. And we're coming around Cape Farewell, and we picked a Danish Coast Guard message up for an emergency. And at that point, you are really committed to look for it. And it was a French sailor that had gone missing. So we spent we spent about 12 hours looking for this boat, and then there was a message saying, they've been found, stand down. By that time, a huge storm had come in, so we had to go back to Greenland, and we lost a day there. Otherwise, we would actually cross the Atlantic in about 80 hours and set off. But it's that was it. And we brought the boat back, and then we did a little bit of a tour around the west coast of Ireland, and for Egbert, he'd never been there, and that was it really in its simplistic term. But that trip was really a boy's own couple of weeks away, really. And then we got the record for it.
So anyway. out of all the records or voyages that you've done, which ones really stand out for you as your favourite?
They've all been favourites. They've all been tough. I have a reputation for not doing things the easy way. I think it has to be the very first transatlantic from Portsmouth to Portsmouth. That pushed the boundaries back beyond all belief. We'd had a lot of experience in rigid hull inflatables, round Britons and Bay of Biscays and God knows what else. And again, I have to admit there may have been a little bit of beer involved in the planning of that one, because we were on our way to a boat show and with the doctor and the crew and that, and we said, what we're going to do? I said, let's cross the Atlantic. And, okay, we'll cross the Atlantic. So it came about from that. And I had some friends in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and the late Brian Pilcher, I just found out passed away last year, unfortunately. He became our PR manager and really blew it up beyond all proportion. And it was just this 23-foot open boat that we were going to go, and from Portsmouth up to Nova Scotia and Labrador and Greenland and Iceland and wherever. And we didn't even have a GPS as such. It was just everything was basic in those days. But we were navigators. We'd come up the hard way, and it was just a memorable boys' own adventure for everything that happened. It was every day was an adventure. Everything was new. I remember the boat was delivered to Newark in New York, and we arranged a shipping company to road haul it up to New Hampshire, and they got stopped by the police. They didn't have the paperwork, so they left the boat in New York on the sidewalk. And when the boat was eventually found, all the instruments were out of it, and the chairman of Raytheon at the time, which is now, it was owned Ray Marine, he was having a break in Bermuda, and he got the news.
Do you want to come here?
There we go. Being abandoned. My crew are abandoning me.
No special guest. They've left the boat on the side of a road in New York.
Yeah, and then Raytheon actually managed to the police into finding it, and the chairman of Raytheon was having a break after doing some multi-trillion-dollar bill in the Bahamas, and he got to hear about it. He jumped on a plane and come and saw us. He said, "What do you guys want?" And the boat back. And he said, "What about equipment?" I said, "Well, only what was stolen." And they just really, really helped us out and opened a lot of doors, because we didn't know the full procedures with the Coast Guard, how we were going to be impounded. They could stop us leaving. But everything was fine in the end. And I remember the last day, the Coast Guard, the American Coast Guard, were the timers for it. And we're in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, beautiful place, beautiful people. And he said, I need you to do something for us. I said, "What's that?" He said, "Can you go straight?" He said, "I don't want you to turn left straight away." He said, "Can you go out 5 miles and then turn to port and then keep going?" I said, "Yeah, any particular reason why?" He said, "Well, you'll be approaching Canadian waters and it won't be our problem if it goes wrong." But yeah, no, it was just, it's very difficult to put into words, but every day was an experience. And I met an old fisherman actually in Labrador, and he said about ice equipment and that. He said, "Oh, forget it. Don't even bother turning the radar on." And he said, "You don't need any of that." I said, "Well, what do we do?" He said, "You'll smell the ice." And he wasn't wrong. We smell ice before you could see it. It's a distinct smell. We weren't hallucinating, but there's a strange phenomenon that Chicago actually can be imprinted in the sky over Greenland. It's something to do with the atmospheric conditions and bits and pieces. And we had a glimpse of that once.
Chicago, course, the flying island.
Yeah, and again, there was no internet or anything in those days, and we were reliant upon sending faxes when we were stepping on shore, and they were pretty unreliable as well. But Yeah, and then the ice closed in on us, and we did have to seek a bit of assistance from the Danish Navy, special surface base there, and we were outside in really, really, really cold conditions for about 2 days. And in fact, when the summer icebreaker did get to us, we had to go to the icebreaker, which was like 60 miles further north than we actually wanted to go, because all the harbours were closed. This is in July, and they had put their medical centre on emergency for us. They were convinced we were in trouble, and we went to them in the end. They broke the hole, then backed off, and we went in the hole, and they put a line on it, and we just scrambled up the side of the icebreaker, and they said, what do you want? I said, can we have a beer? So we went into the officers' mess and had a beer, and then we were arrested, actually, at that point, when we arrived in Greenland by the Danish. They thought we might have been some sort of spies or anything, but once they checked us out, it was fine. It was just about how much money we had to pay for everything.
Right.
I can assure you, icebreakers aren't cheap. But it was all part of the experience. And then when we left the Danish base, the commanding officer got us in. He had actually served down here in the submarine service, and he had said, "Oh, when you go out," he said, "just make sure you keep the ice on your left." Sensible, yeah. Which we did, and then after about 3 hours, we found ice appearing in front of us. So we turned slightly to starboard, and then we found ice on our starboard side. And what we'd done is we'd actually driven into a huge, great ice fjord. So we had to come back 70 miles, then go further south, and then cut round. And we knew at that point we probably didn't have enough fuel to get to Iceland. And we did have to seek the assistance of a fishing boat. But yeah, that was all character building.
Okay, we're gonna have a break soon, but before we do, I just want to set the scene for the current things that you're working on now. And so you've got all that transatlantic voyages, and then I suppose what's next is the question after that, circumnavigation. So you've got the attempt in 2022 and then through to 2028. What can you tell us about those challenges there, and was there a change in between?
Yeah, I mean, we'd finished the powerboat records, and in honour of Sir Alec Rose, his boat wasn't particularly being looked after very, very well. So I put a plan together with Portsmouth City Council, who wanted me to buy her, actually. And I remember they negotiated to sell her for £1. And I said, no, I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to buy her. Upon reflection, that might not have been one of my better business deals, but I generally believe she's part of Portsmouth and she shouldn't be owned. She should be owned by Portsmouth, which she is. And we did a reasonable restoration on her at the time, and we sailed her around the world over a 2-year period with my children's charity Around and Around, which was, truly, truly amazing. So, but it also leads on to where I am now, because we were drifting across the Pacific for nearly 30 days. And I was sitting on the forecastle thinking, I can swim quicker than this. I actually started to design the big boat that we got now. So if that leads you into the next stage.
Wonderful. No, I would really love, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I'd really like to talk about education. Mm-hmm. I'd like to talk about our local area, the Solent, and what's so unique about it in your work here in this area, and then go on to talk about Full Circle and your current project. Yeah. Sound like a good plan?
Yeah, that's a perfect plan.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break. Please do rejoin us in a couple of minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone, to the second part of the podcast. We're with the legendary record holder, Alan Priddy. So in the first half, Alan, we were talking about some of your amazing records and some of your amazing stories, survival stories, and that was great to hear. And just to ease us in, we're going to come on and talk about your current project, Full Circle, and I'd like to work towards that by talking about the area and also education, which is something that is so passionate to me. So tell me a bit about your history with the next generation and education and stuff.
The next generation is like you. I'm very passionate about it, and I was not an educated person. I didn't have any. My entire qualifications were waterwork and sailing. But I pushed myself to learn more and more and more, and that's what we encourage with younger people as well. they may not be good at school. But there are some times, with my own two sons, for example, they were never going to be educationalists. They were never going to go to university. So I taught them the right way of life. I taught them how to fix things. I taught them how to be nice. And that was very, very important. I'm proud to say both my sons are very, very successful now. Probably more successful than me, but they keep the money to themselves. They don't give it away. And I've replicated that. I replicated it with the sailing charity Around and Around. There's very good things in everybody. It's actually finding it and encouraging them to play to that strength they've got that they may not know. And that's how our charity operates. I mean, I'm very proud that the Lively Lady at the moment, or currently, is actually looked after by the Kent Sea Scouts. She's in Chatham at the Historic Museum. She's out on the water most weeks. She's doing the East Coast classic boat shows and gaining interest all the time. We've had more inquiries for sailing on her than ever before, because people now believe in it and they know a little bit about it. But with Lively Lady, it was important that we did work with youngsters, because the people that remember Sir Alec and the boat are getting older to the point they may not be around forever, which is a known fact, and I fall into that category as well. So I looked at.
I think we all do.
Yeah, I'm trying to be diplomatic on it, although my membership of that club ran out many years ago. I restored Lively Lady and started Around and Around, because otherwise she would be forgotten. And everything we do for Lively Lady is to make sure she's never forgotten, that Sir Alec's never forgotten, because he was one of the greats, absolute one of the greats. And all the youngsters we work with, okay, they're not youngsters anymore. They're married, got children, and still very much involved. We've got new sets of youngsters coming through now, and I hope we'll have the children of our children that we work with will join the project. Make it a family trait, and that's all we can really do is keep going.
So it's called Around and Around, on Lively Lady, kids getting out, learning those skills.
Yep.
Something that I've learned through sail training, learning about sail training in Gosport and in Portsmouth Harbour, is that quite often it's about the skills. It's not necessarily about the actual sailing skills. It's about what being in that environment and learning that as a young person gives you. What would you say about that? Like, there might be kids out there saying, well, I don't want to sail. It's all great you doing your record things, but it's not necessarily for me. How would you encourage them still to take part, do you think?
Actually, I can sum that up. Prior to coming to your studios for this wonderful event today, I had a young lad, it was brought to me by one of our sponsors who they were looking after, who thought he might be interested in boats and sailing. It turned out he actually isn't that interested in boats, but he wants to be an engineer. And our latest project is engineering excellence. I've really, really, really put the best of the best of the best together, including myself. And I showed him around the boat, and his mouth just kept opening. And I said, "You can do this. All you've got to do is push yourself." And he is at college now, and I'm not frightened to say things that possibly some people won't, but I had to say to him, if you think your instructor is wrong, tell him you think he's wrong and explain to him why you think he's wrong. Because by tradition, a lot of instructors, stroke teachers or whatever, probably aren't as good as they possibly could be. And I've had many occasions where I've been invited to work at colleges and training centres, and I've turned them down because they're not teaching the skills for the youngsters to move forward. The old ways are the old ways, and they come after the new ways. Simple as that. But you can't stand still all the time, and there's no point teaching someone to do something that is never going to be any good for their adulthood. Mm-hmm. And again, that's it's a strange way. I mean, we've had some political issues with Around and Around, but I've stood in the corner and I've stated my case, and they've always worked out because we think outside the box. We think, because I was one of those youngsters. I didn't go to university. yes, I've got an honorary doctorate, and honestly, it's probably the proudest moment of my life. I thought it was a group of friends were taking a joke on me, and I ignored the first request to contact the Chancellor of Portsmouth University because I thought it was a big wind-up. I do, and as a group of people, we like having fun, and it wasn't until I actually took a phone call from the university saying, "Look, are you going to attend this ceremony or not?" And I've been to a lot of places in the world, and I've stood on stage with a lot of people, but it was Sandy Toxvith, the actress on QI and things like that. Mm-hmm. She was the Chancellor, and she presented it to me, and I was in the gowns, and she, not the tallest lady, I'm not the tallest man, but she said to me, "You look worried." I said, "Well, Sandy, give me gun-toting pirates in the South China Seas, and I'm quite happy. Me standing here, I'm bricking it." And I had the whole audience to talk to, but I did it, and but I think I mentioned earlier, I think I'd only passed my driving test as the only exam that I'd actually passed. To be awarded a honorary doctorate was for the work that I did for charities and my scientific work and the sailing and the boating. It was a massive honour, and I say to everybody, you can do that. If you don't have to be good at school, you just have to be good to yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a really good opportunity to segue into talking about the current project and everything that's going on. But before we do, I really just want to touch on the local area, because you talked about University of Portsmouth there, and I think as someone who wasn't born in the area or come into the area, I come in with fresh eyes and I just see that. And I just wonder what you think, what your experience of that is in the Solent area, and particularly why, and this will be a good way to segue into the new project, why do you think Portsmouth is the place for you at the moment, or this area is where you want to be?
Portsmouth is unique. It's tribal. Historically, it's always been run by a set number of families. The families have come and gone as such, but in the main, it's tribal. It is one of the most friendliest places on earth. It is geographically in a perfect location, being so close to France, so close to London, so close to lots and lots of things. It is so well known in the world. Portsmouth is globally known. Now, whether that's through its history, its football club, or just its personnel, I don't know. But I've been in some strange places in the world. I've been arrested in some places for not wanting to pay bribes. And when they say, I remember one guard was escorting me back to a cell because it's in, I don't know, somewhere in the world, somewhere horrible where I've been, and I wouldn't agree with the terms and conditions for the bribery. And it's not as bad as it was, but it's always there. And he said, "You come to Portsmouth?" Yeah, he said, "Oh, Pompey." He knew about Portsmouth Football Club, and I think it's just a great place. I mean, I love the world. I love travelling. My best sight I ever see is when you come down the A3 and you just look there and there's Portsmouth. It's just a stunning view. And I often go up to the top of Portsdown Hill. If I've got a big document to read, I go to the top of Portsdown Hill and sit on one of the benches with a can of Coca-Cola and other drinks are available and read that document because it gives me peace of mind. I've got nice offices I don't use anymore. In fact, the big boat is an office. But it's just such a wonderful place, and it's very difficult to put into words what it is. But it's my home. I don't want to be anywhere else, although I like travelling the world.
I agree with you, and I just want to say that to everyone out there, and Gosport specifically. Yep. I think there's this idea that it's not a nice place to be, that some people feel, or they want to escape it. And I just agree at just how beautiful it is and the opportunities that there are here. And that's really everything that I'm about, is trying to increase those opportunities. Is one of the reasons why I'm here in this media space, is I want people to learn those skills. And it's about, this is a thread I've had through a few conversations I've had on podcasts recently. It's about finding your thing. And here you've got that opportunity to find that thing, which is for you is the boating and the travel and that journeys. And so that's the advice, and keep trying things. Find your thing is my advice to young people. I think this is a great opportunity to talk about the current project, Full Circle. So tell me a bit about what you're currently working at. We've heard about the past. We've heard about who you are. What are you currently doing, Alan?
One could answer that quite simply. I've had better ideas, but I haven't. I haven't had better
Have you said that about every project?
Yeah, I know. This is it's huge. It grew from something I missed. I didn't get the overall world record back in 2002, so I wanted to go back and have another go at it. But it grew into such a huge project, which actually is more than me. Full circle. It's quite easy. What goes around comes around. And that's it. So we named it Full Circle. We are going fully around the world. It's not been without its problems because of its size as a project, but it's educational for all walks of life.
So give us the basics. What have you done? What's the goal?
Okay, the goal is to take as many people around the world as possible, while showing them the world by teaching about the environment, the answers and questions that are going on in the environment in a real-time life. The boat is a floating science lab. It's an environmental lab. It's an endurance boat. It's everything that you could possibly imagine and more can happen in the boat. We have full-time teachers on our crew, ex-military that have sustained some injuries and gone on to retrain into the education systems.
How many crew then? How many on board?
We have a little problem as much with insurance because of what we're doing. For some reason, they think it's dangerous. But I have now found a group of 3 Lloyd's underwriters who are actually going to insure it through a very good friend of mine, an insurance broker, and they're going to restrict me to 10 crew. But I might better push that to 12 if I take 2 passengers or 2 sponsors or whatever. We were going to take 17. We can sleep 19 people on the boat, so that's an indication.
So that's kind of the vision, the original vision, and what you actually managed to deliver. Well, is in the works.
Yes, yeah.
So you've built this boat.
I built it from a pencil drawing. When I got back from sailing Lively Lady, I did take a year off, and I tried to be normal. I tried to do the gardening and I tried to go shopping at weekends and things like that, but it was eating me away that I didn't get what I set out to do in 2002, which was to get the world record back to Britain. And then I had the opportunity to, I also had to go back to work, which is a bit of a shame. I managed to put it together, and I sourced the best of British, best designers, best engineers, everybody. And we all sat down for a long, long time, probably 2 years before we started building, to make sure everything was in place. I'm mightily proud of the whole team. Richard Hunt, who goes by the name One Leg Richie, can't think why.
Hey Richie.
Hi Richie, yeah, he'll be watching this when it comes out. It's such an immensely strong project as well. It's more than the boat. It's about the involvement of everybody that's interested in the sea, everybody that's interested in the planet, as we are. I mean, as an example, we've just started a new part of the programme where we think it's entirely wrong for us to leave our rubbish in another country. Why should we create a problem for another country? So we're actually going to bring back everything we take. So it means decanting a lot of food into better receptacles. We'll be very, very hot on engineering for that. I mean, I'm an engineer, so I'll be designing some compression machines to flatten things down, but we are going to bring everything back that we take. And I know that's a tall order. I've already had our main meal of the day made. I have a very good friend who is a top chef in the area, Tony Simmons, and he's made all our freeze-dried food, which is not the usual military rat packs. It is actually a proper meal that he's cooked and then spent 3 days freeze-drying it. And we're going to use those bags that we eat out of as a waste bag. So each and every crew member will be liable for all their rubbish. And like I say, I know it's a tall order, but technically, if you've eaten some of the food, you should have some space in the bag to put your rubbish in. Mm-hmm. So, and that's an education side. It's like the sea is dirty because of mankind, not because of any other reason. And we see it more and more often. I mean, I'll pick a plastic bottle up in the street and I'll carry it to the next bin. There's an education problem of youngsters dropping litter. And that doesn't make them bad people. It means they haven't been told or explained the consequences of dropping a sweet wrapper. That sweet wrapper ultimately will end up in someone's stomach. In some shape or form, it will go into the sea and then end up in the food chain. And I know that's like a bizarre thing to say, but it is true. Most of the pollution in the sea comes from the land. And that's what we say. We've executed a plan called the Sea Soup, because the sea is a very dirty place now. I mean, I was fortunate to grow up in a time where it wasn't dirty, but it is dirty. I don't only mean sewerage. It's nearly everything you see in the sea now is not good. So we're going out of our way for a big education program. The education program obviously starts here. It then follows its way into the Mediterranean. We've got some really good friends. I'm working with a really good guy in Palermo, Sergio. We are joint adventurers. He goes one way, I go the other.
So as you travel, part of the purpose is to raise awareness
most
of
definitely, yeah.
sustainable, not necessarily sustainable, ecology and being better treatment of the ocean.
Yeah, we're already, even at this early stage, we're working with the government of St Helena in the down in the far reaches of the Atlantic, say Italy, the Mediterranean, and we want to take that message all the way around the world with online education programs from the boat. We already have the equipment to test everything. We've teamed up with Fiat Powertrain in Turin and Milan, and they've actually designed and manufactured all the electronics to go into our engines, so they get 81 points of reference at all times. There's a modification to it which is actually going to show water contamination as well. So by registration from universities or schools, people will be able to see what's happening in real live time for every second that we are at sea. Every single second. It's an open source project.
That's amazing. I personally am a big fan of exploration, and certainly recently as we record this, I've followed, the Artemis 2 mission around the moon. And so it's really interesting when you were talking about the freeze-dried food and taking everything with you. And being a lab there, that's so inspirational. And there's that often told, maybe apocryphal story about how there's parts that we know there's parts of the ocean that we know less about than space, and so really it does start at home. So
just going on to that, I would say we are closer to Artemis 2 than we are to anything to do with boating. I've gone out of my way to make this project so scientific. I've been honoured to work with some, as I said before, some very, very smart people, far, far smarter than me. Our satellite systems, our information transfer systems. I mean, I watched Artemis 2 and was amazed at the clarity of the photographs and the voice content, everything coming back. And I thought, we've done that. We've got that. Yeah, we're doing that. We've done that. The only thing is we're not floating around in space. We're floating around on the ocean. So, yes, we're very, very proud of that.
When you say we're closer, what do you mean? Do you mean in terms of awareness? You feel like there's more...
There's more synergy.
Oh, you mean full circle?
Yeah, there's full circle as a close affinity with Artemis 2 than it does with any form of boating.
Right, got you. Right, sorry,
and that's the bit that sometimes we struggle to get over to. I'm going to say boating people mainly because that's just one of those things. But yeah, I mean we are going overboard from now to kickstart everything into overdrive. We know where we are, we know where we want to go, and we know the timings that we want to do it, and we do want to set off towards the end of this year. And we've got a tight timeline, but hey, life's a challenge.
Well, I've got a quote from you here that says the hardest part is getting to the starting line.
Yeah.
Are you going to eat your own words there? Or?
No, that would never change. It is tough. It is tough to get to the start line. We struggled. I've got so many broken contracts to me for financial assistance and sponsorship, stuff that we've been approached by companies and we've gone out of our way to support them and build their companies only not to be paid. It's been tough. And then COVID came, which was a bit of a problem. We launched the boat about a month before COVID and floated it over to where we finished the boat off because it was so big we couldn't finish it in the yard that built it. And then just when we cleared that, there was the unfortunate, Russia invasion of Ukraine.
So where is she now? Where's the boat now?
She's on Hayling Island still.
Oh, okay.
She's at Mill Ryde, and she's afloat, and she's completely finished. The boat is completely finished. We finished it last year, and we've been working on the commercial side, and of course then there's the Middle Eastern war, which it's all wars are sad. Don't see the point of them. I don't understand war. I don't know why people don't keep talking. I really don't. I don't understand it. There's simple solutions and there's difficult solutions, and some countries want to make a difficult solution.
Maybe part of the voyage is demonstrating that and international cooperation and overcoming those boundaries.
Most definitely. Although we've had more than our fair share over the years in certain areas of the world, and our insurers are insisting we don't go anywhere near them anymore. Yeah. So there's certain parts of the world that I think are going to suffer for a very, very long time. Hopefully some of the problems can be sorted out, because the future's not looking good for some industries. But, as I suppose really I'm the end of a war baby anyway, so we've seen it all before. It's not new, it's just sad.
No, I'm with you on that, Alan. Yep. About going back to that, the hardest part is getting to the starting line. What are the blockers, what are the hurdles that you're currently facing with Full Circle?
We've got what we've never had before. We've got a completely finished boat. We've got everything that we need in the boat. We don't need anything more for the boat. We've got a good team. We've built everything up around it. We have a budget we need to find to campaign the boat now. We are in talks with to extend some arrangements with our existing sponsors, which I'm pretty sure will happen. And we just have to keep looking for new sponsors and supporters all the way through to the start line.
So it's actually about those external things. You've done the engineering, you've done the planning, you've got the boat, you've got the planning. So it's looking for those partners. And
yes.
What kind of partners would you say are the best fit?
Because of my age, I'm going to say pension companies.
So you're saying people with money?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not saying pensioners got money, but that. I am talking to a company at the moment, an insurance company. I loved one of their adverts, and I wrote to them praising their advert for it. And it was a 90-second advert, which is long for TV. And they specialise in medical cover for pensioners and silver travellers, which we fit that block. And I'm not saying it didn't go as well as I thought, but it's slower than I thought. It is still there. And they would be an ideal sponsor, because we represent, the crew represent an industry, which is the silver pound. I mean, for example, my oldest crew member's 90, fit as a fiddle, ex-military, up until 2 years ago was racing his own powerboat for Cowes Torquay, great guy, on the ball. My youngest member is head of education, he's 58, and we've got in between. 3 of our crew have been together forever and ever and ever, and we are 73. We were born in 53, which seems to be a unique year. And then we've got people in between. So, but we're all fit and healthy. As I said when I arrived today, I needed to do half of my 6-mile walk today, so I walked from the ferry to here, and I walked to the ferry. So, and it's keeping going. I'm going to touch a piece of wood here. I've never been ill, never. I've broken nearly every part of my body one way or the other.
Okay, so you've got a definition of illness that's
different. Yeah, illness is something that is outside of your control. I didn't have to break everything in the circumstances that I did. And yes, I mean, the injuries I got, as I've got older, they might show up in maybe a strange walk, or can't move my head so far. I mean, I've had my back rebuilt twice, and on the second time they found out I actually had a broken neck, but I just thought it was uncomfortable. But I'm, touch wood again, I'm quite healthy, and so's my crew. We don't go out of our way to keep fit in any way, shape or form. We go out of our way to keep going. And it's so easy after COVID. I've seen so many people leave this planet when they shouldn't have done, through sedentary inaction. And that is another part of the project. So at the beginning, we got the young education side, which we follow right the way through. But we also represent an elderly group, which often get dismissed. Because we are that group, we're not prepared to dismiss it.
Gotcha. So the big hurdle at the moment is looking for those partners, looking for those people who are willing to support you. You've outlined the kind of people you think.
Yep.
I suppose it'd be remiss of me not to give the opportunity. You've been so generous with your time to offer you the time to say there might be people who listen to this, watch this, and they might be thinking, oh, I like Alan, or I know Alan, and I really want to support Full Circle. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them, or what could you say to encourage them to get involved?
If it's a company or corporation or of any form, of any size, please contact me and we can cut the cloth accordingly. We can do what you want us to do, not what we want to do for you. I think our strongest audience is the public, and we want you to be part of us. We would want you to come onto our website if there's anything there that turns you on. We're not greedy people by any stretch of the imagination. We want to work with you. We want you to be part of the project. And my aim, and I know it's a tall order, but we should be able to do it, is to get to a minimum of 1 billion people coming around the world with us every day. On the data we've got so far, there's no reason why we couldn't quadruple that. And that's what we can do on social media. If you see a badge for sale or whatever, anything. I don't like asking people for money. I'll work for my money. I will definitely work for my money. And that's what I say with the corporate side. Some of our sponsors work me really, really hard. And I don't mind because they've allowed us to get the boat finished. I have no idea how much the fuel's going to cost at the moment. I did, and it was budgeted to the penny, but that went out the window a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just
so it's really
support the project.
It's really about this vision you've got of the project really being this high profile thing that's really reaching a massive audience, and so it's about the people who want to be aligned with that.
Yeah.
And they get. I guess sponsorship agreements would include kind of name sponsors. What else do they get? Do they like special content?
Most definitely. I mean, as an example, we're just working on a little project at the moment, part of the project. It's a supporters project. It's been costed at $29.99, but we're doing it in quite a unique way. Because of our environmental credentials, I'm having both sides of the boat painted or wrapped as a shoal of fish. And some of those fish are endangered species. And we're going to put the people's names inside each and every one of the fish. So your name will always be visible, or a family name. Obviously, there's a certificate and there's invites to come aboard the boat and have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee. We have open evenings. We have barbecues. We're very, very social. Mm-hmm. So once we get going, we'll be in this area a lot more. We can come over to any of the marinas here. We're fortunate that over the lifetime we've made friends with a lot of the owners of them, Gun, Wharf, Hazard, wherever. But yeah, we have to start somewhere. We have a different level. We have a beer and curry evening once a week. And in the past it's been for existing sponsors and that. But I'd like to open that up. We want to make friends with people because that's the most important part of life. Be friends and you won't have wars. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for the world to be unfriendly if you make friends.
Wonderful. So your message really there is if there's anyone there who's thinking, I'd like to meet, they want to meet you, they want to learn more about the project, and hopefully they might have something to offer, whether it's money or some other support, is reach out to you. What's the best way of reaching out to you?
You can either website or come to me, alanpriddy.com. fullcircle.international. I'm not an unknown person.
There you go.
You'll find my details anywhere.
So Alan Priddy and Full Circle International. Find out those websites and you get the contact information. That's great. I guess I've got a question here. It's quite a confrontational question, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. What's a non-negotiable for you when talking to a sponsor?
Tobacco.
Right. I was about to say an oil company, but...
no, we don't have a problem with oil companies because, part of our scientific work is something that we don't speak about widely, is I got my honorary doctorate for a strong element of science. And I go back to, I'm not an educated person, but I'm quite clever. I invented a formula to turn salt water into diesel. And the oil companies have snubbed me for the last 6 years. We sent our fuel all over the world at the request of oil companies, and they can't fault it, but they don't want to use it, which is fine. I accept that. So the proof of concept will be going around the world running one of our engines on our fuel. And that engine, with the other engine, all the information from those two engines go to an independent in Turin. And that information will be freely available to a registered interested party. We have open source. We don't cheat. We're not greenwashing. It is fact. This is what it does. So I wouldn't have a problem with a fuel company. Mm-hmm. It has to be tobacco. We've turned down a few tobacco offers. It's too controversial. In the past, we had to turn down alcohol because we were going to the Middle East on several occasions, which is a no-no. We turned one down actually recently. We had a title sponsor come to us. It was a bank in Switzerland.
What do you mean by title sponsor?
Wanted to take the full name.
Right. So it would be Full Circle, the so-and-so Full Circle.
Yeah, total.
Right.
Quite big money.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable with the initial contact. So my managing director, Alistair Thompson, and my marketing director, Paul Thompson, but they're not related, live at different ends of the country. They dealt with it. I was getting the reports, and I kept saying, I don't like this. It was a Swiss bank, and the person I was speaking to had a French phone number.
Are you sure you're okay sharing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I won't mention names.
Yeah.
And they were based in Madrid, and they were anxious, kept pushing that they want us to go out there and meet with them. And I kept saying, we're not going until we can do full due diligence. And when we sent them what we wanted from them, which was bank references, normal stuff, obviously, they said they weren't prepared to divulge confidential information, which was rather stupid because we weren't going to move forward at that. And in the end, it was I was copied in on an email from our marketing team to them, and I purposely replied to all, knowing full well that they would read what I was about to write. And I wrote very simply, I don't believe this to be a genuine deal. I believe it to have a 99.9% chance of failure or fraud. 0.1% won't matter to us. My advice is to walk away from it. And they still came back to us.
Wow, that's a big red flag, isn't it?
That was a big red flag. And then we asked for more due diligence, and they just said no. Right. So anything to do with fraud, and there are a lot of fraudulent companies out there. I'm not saying all, but you have to be careful. You have to do so much research.
I think we've got a good flavour of you, Alan, as an ethical man who cares about the planet, and so that's totally.
I'd rather go hungry.
Understandable. All right, so we're coming towards the end. So I wonder if there's anything else you want to share, or I've got a few final questions.
From my part, I'm very, very proud to be here actually, and to meet with you, and to be part of this new awareness thing. Really, I mean, it's not about me, is it? It's about what we've done, what we're going to do, and who's coming with us. So I'm only the bus driver.
Yeah, wonderful. And that really brings me on to kind of what I feel I maybe brought in that theme of awareness and the next generation. And so I really, if you had like one parting piece of advice for that young person, you mentioned meeting someone today who's thinking about whether they can get involved in that, maybe doubting whether it's the right thing for them. Maybe they've got a bit of imposter syndrome. Oh, I can't do that. What's your message to them, to that young person?
Well, it comes back down to the 65-year-old saying from Sir Alec: if you believe you can, you can. Go out and do it. Do it.
If you believe you can, you can. Go out and do it. Wonderful. And so
believe in yourself.
And so you believe that in this journey, going around the world.
Yeah, I'm very confident that we have a right set of plans, a right formula. I've put 10 years into this now, and it's there now. It's there. Apart from the final bit, which we're working on. You're
getting to that starting line.
We'll get to the start line, definitely.
And I hope everyone out there will take this amazing opportunity to follow that journey. I think we've already said that the best places to find information is by going out there and either finding Alan Priddy. You've got your own website, you said alanpriddy.com, or Full Circle International. get out there, follow that journey, and if anyone can support, please do reach out, and because I certainly will be watching Alan and doing everything I can to support you. So thank you very much for your time today, and good luck. Nick. Good luck with it all.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. You'll have to come out on the boat. To come to one of our beer and curry nights.
I hope to see as many of you at home there.
Yep.
So thank you very much for watching this episode of the new Solent Marine Scene podcast. We hope to bring you more amazing stories like Alan's, more stories, also some grassroots stuff. So some stuff, Gosport Marine Festival that I help run is coming up soon. So I hope to collar some people to talk about that, things like getting involved in cadet forces, opportunities for sail training. So thank you very much for listening or watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, please either leave a review, share it with your friends, follow us so that you can be notified of future episodes. And thank you for joining us on this journey. And we will see you in a future episode. Thank you very much.